Hey everyone, Noah Zerby here. This is one of a series of videos looking at foreign policy decision making. In this video, we're going to look at the concepts of iron triangles and issue networks. Now, you should remember from our other video that interest groups are organizations that attempt to influence the political process or policy outcomes. In our earlier video, we examined some of the ways that they might do this. In this video, we're going to look at broader questions around their influence. In his January 17, 1961 farewell address, President Dwight Eisenhower warned about the dangers posed by the growing influence of the military-industrial complex, a term Eisenhower himself developed. Let's listen.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
Eisenhower was uniquely positioned to make this assessment. He had been an officer in the U.S. Army during World Wars I and II, eventually rising to the rank of general and ultimately serving as the Supreme Allied Commander overseeing all operations in Europe. After the war, Eisenhower served as the Supreme Commander for the newly formed NATO, with responsible for overseeing the defense of Europe in the event of a Soviet attack. President Eisenhower had no qualms about his opinion on military spending. He once famously commented, "I hate war as only a soldier who has lived it can, only as one who has seen its brutality, its futility, its stupidity." He also once asserted that every gun that is made, every warship that is launched, every rocket fired, in the final sense, is a theft from those who are not fed, those who are cold and not clothed. All of this made Eisenhower's caution about the growing influence of the military-industrial complex even more prescient. But it's important to remember that Eisenhower was discussing more than the simple lobbying efforts employed by most private companies and interest groups. What he was really concerned about was the unprecedented influence that the military-industrial complex could have over policy making. In political science, we sometimes use the concept of the iron triangle to describe this influence. The idea of the iron triangle was originally articulated in the early 1980s to describe the policymaking relationship between Congress, particularly congressional committees, the bureaucracy, and interest groups. The idea of the iron triangle is intended to describe a process whereby the bureaucracy and Congress come to align with the agenda of a particular interest group rather than with the general public. An interest group may lobby members of Congress and promise support for their re-election campaigns, hoping that Congress will pass legislation that's favorable to their interests. The bureaucracy is responsible for implementing legislation passed by Congress and is dependent on Congress for funding, and particularly given the revolving door that often develops between industry and regulatory agencies, the bureaucracy and interest groups may come to view issues in very similar ways. In the context of the military-industrial complex, we might consider the intersection between specific congressional committees like the House Armed Services Committee, which is responsible for oversight of the Defense Department, the Pentagon and the Department of Defense, and companies like Boeing, General Electric, and Lockheed Martin. Together, these three groups often come to view U.S. military policy through a shared set of concerns and interests, constituting an iron triangle in this issue area. And we can think of other iron triangles as well. There could be an iron triangle centered on the House Subcommittee on Health and the Senate Subcommittee on Healthcare, both of which deal with healthcare policy, as well as the drug industry and the Food and Drug Administration. Or an iron triangle centered around banking, with the House Subcommittee on Banking, the Department of Treasury, and the large banking and finance companies like JP Morgan Chase or Wells Fargo. Once we understand the idea of iron triangles, we start to see them creep up in lots of places. While the idea of iron triangles provides a useful heuristic for looking at those close ties between policymaking and interests, particularly in some areas like defense, in others the relationship between lobbyists and the bureaucracy is not as rigid or inflexible as the idea of iron triangles might suggest. It also simplifies the number of actors involved in the policy process and ignores some of the competing interests which may influence it. Instead, we might think about issue networks, which emerge around specific issues and are based on shared understandings and expertise. Such issue networks might consist of a variety of actors, including people in interest groups, congressional staff members, bureaucrats, academics, the media, and others. Because they frequently place competing demands on policymakers, the issue networks concept emphasizes the unevenness and the tension within the policymaking process. Issues may be discussed and debated by a large number of actors, each of which expresses partisan, ideological, or economic concerns in a specific area. Take environmental policy as an example. At a minimum, we might think of competing interests as involving oil companies, which are different from and often in competition with the interests of environmental groups like the Sierra Club. Academic researchers may weigh in on a policy debate. There may be other lobbying groups like the Club for Growth, which opposes stricter environmental standards as economically disadvantageous. There may also be other commercial interests, say from green energy companies, which are lobbying at cross purposes with the oil companies. And members of Congress and the bureaucracy may have their own takes, and so on. From this perspective, the policy outcome is the result of competitions over framing on the question of hand, and the success of coalitions can change or evolve over time. So that concludes our brief overview of issue networks and iron triangles. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good day.